Hey everyone, we're live. We're just gonna give it 1 or 2 more minutes to give everyone a chance to join, and then we'll start.
Sure.
Recording in progress.
All right, I think we should be good to go now. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our first, but hopefully not first of many getting started with SeedBlink sessions. My name is Vlad. I am the growth manager at SeedBlink, and I have with me Anna, who is our community and operations manager. Before we get into answering your questions, let me first give you some context on why we decided to do this live Q&A session. We noticed that a lot of you have a lot of questions on how the process of investing and with SeedBlink goes, and we thought that the best way to address those is to give you the opportunity to ask them live and have one of our experts answer them. Which is why we have Anna with us today. Some of you might know her, but she's the one, her and her team manage the process of investment from A to C. So there is literally no other person that can, that's better to answer your questions. Before we begin, let me quickly go through some housekeeping items. If you can go to the next slide. All right, so first, the webinar is being recorded. We will send you the recording in the next 48 hours. If at any point during the webinar you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A session. We will answer all of them in chronological order. If any questions remain unanswered at the end of the webinar, don't worry, we will still follow up with you and answer them. And in terms of the format, Anna will actually do a 10 to 15 minutes intro session where she'll walk you through some basic stuff. So hopefully answer a lot of the preemptively answer a lot of the questions that you have. And then the remaining of the 45 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever will just be dedicated to answering your questions. So we'll have plenty time to go through all of them. All right, and now that we have that out of the way, Anna, I'll pass it over to you for the intro.
Thank you, Vlad, for the intro. I am glad to be here to answer your question, and thanks to everybody who had the time to join us. I would start with a simple question. Who can be an investor on SeedBlink? I would say that anyone can be an investor. Can be individuals if they have the legal age, or a company, it doesn't matter. A company incorporated in Romania or somewhere all over the world. Regarding the companies we finance through SeedBlink, I will just say that they are passing the rigorous checking. We have a list of acceptance criteria, even though we cannot guarantee the success of any of those campaigns. but we are trying our best to see the meaning of this campaign, the purpose for what they are fundraising, and the fact that the companies are legit and their aim for fundraising is also legit and has business purpose. In regards of the campaign, we are and the financial instruments we have on SeedBlink, I would mention the three of them. Equity, which is the most common. This means that the company, in exchange for its shares, will get funds. The SAFE is basically a booking of the shares. It's an abbreviation of a simple agreement for future equity. And it has several favorable conditions for the investors, a discount rate or a valuation cap. It means when the shares will be owned by the SPV, then the SPV will have several benefits. Regarding the convertible loan, this is a loan and that will be later converted into shares. You can find further details regarding this type of financial instruments on our platform. There are several articles, and also you can find FAQs for each of them. You have an FAQ regarding the differences. In terms of the process, because behind the button you see with commit, actually the magic doesn't happen when you hit commit. It is a long process. And here you have a map of our process. When an investor comes and press the commit button on the campaign, will receive an agreement for facilitating this investment. The first time investors also get a call. I and my team are contacting all the new investors that registered through our platform, and we'll get further details regarding the process, and we will answer all the questions. The investor have 4 days to send us their final decision, meaning if they want to go further with the investment, they should sign the agreement and upload it in the on the platform. When we receive the signed agreement, then we consider the investment confirmed. At the end of the campaign ends either when the maximum amount is reached or the time elapses. Usually a campaign has 45 days to raise on our platform, and the maximum amount is settled from the beginning, and those information are displayed for each campaign. When the campaign ends, we have a short period of reconciliation, we call it, meaning that we have to find out the final decision of all the investors that committed on that campaign. If they want to withdraw, they have to let us know. If they want to go further, they have to sign the agreement. When we have the final list of the confirmed investors and the final amount to be invested, then we'll start the incorporation of the SPV. We are using an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle for each investment, meaning that we will incorporate a Romanian company for each campaign, and the investor will become shareholders of this SPV. The SPV has the only purpose to invest in that company, in that startup that raised funds through our platform. So the first step will be to receive the incorporation documents. They will have 3 days to sign these documents. We are using several apps in order to facilitate the signature of these documents. When we receive all the documents signed, meaning the incorporation, the articles of incorporation, and the statement for each investor, a bank account will be opened on behalf of the SPV. It's basically a share capital account. And in this step, the investor should transfer the investment and the additional costs. Additional costs are incorporation costs that depends on the type of the SPV. And usually it's somewhere around 20 euros per minimum ticket. And the operational cost, which are 1% of the investment, per year, and at the beginning will be paid for the first 2 years, meaning 2% of the investment. Afterwards, starting from the third year, it will be paid annually until the SPV will be closed, until an exit or in a less happier situation when the startup fails and then the SPV should be closed. These operational costs will assure the accountant, the headquarter, and all other administrative all the other administrative tasks. These costs will be transferred along with the investment. Usually they are transferred in lei because the SPV is incorporated in Romania, but for foreign citizens, we may accept also euro. Regarding the costs, SeedBlink is also entitled to a success fee, which is 7.5% of the profits made by the SPV, meaning when the SPV will collect the amount due to dividends or selling its shares, the collected amount minus the initial investment, this will be considered profit and will be charged by SeedBlink with 7.5%. These are the costs for the investors, and when the transfer is done, we will submit the file to the trade registry in order to incorporate this SPV. After we receive the incorporation documents, the investment documents will be signed. In the same time we incorporate the SPV, the legal team will prepare together with the company the investment documents. If it's an equity campaign, then we will have a shareholders agreement that should be put in place that contains all the rights, terms, and the condition of the investment. If it's a SAFE, it would be a contract, a SAFE contract, also with all the conditions. And if it's a convertible loan, it will be also a contract that states all the conditions, the interest rate, the discount, the maximum valuation cap. This is it regarding the process. This is a short description. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions regarding this process, these stages, but I will just let you ask me whenever, whatever you may want to know. A common question.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just one last question. That I started with some question that usually I get from the investors, and this one is so common and it's of great interest for the investors. It's how what's the expected scenario for an exit for an investor from SeedBlink. And usually the most common, it's a collective exit. The startup sells, then the SPV shares will be also sold, and in this case the SPV will collect the amount from selling the shares, will have to pay the taxes, the success fee, and then all the amount will be divided among the investors according to the percentage owned from the SPV. This is the most common. Also, we saw that on a later round, another entity, for instance, a VC, a venture capital, can decide to finance the startup, but not to issue new shares, but rather to make an offer to the SPV. It would be a great offer for the SPV, so then the SPV will have to sell its shares, and then will happen the same. The collected amount will have to pay the taxes, the success fee, and the amount from the SPV will be divided among investors. Also, the startup can decide to go and get listed on a stock exchange. In this case, the investors will have their shares to be traded on that stock exchange. And also we are there is a rather theoretical possibility to sell individual. We usually do not recommend for the investor to sell individual shares because it might be a gap between the prices. We don't know the price of the share anytime. We usually know the price of the share at the round or when the company is evaluated, or the most accurate price is when the company is sold. These are the 4 most common possible scenarios for an exit, but of course there can be other scenarios as well. Thank you, Vlad. I think I finished sooner than the 10 minutes, but I want to let the investors to ask me questions and answer their questions.
Yeah, I think that was really good, and I think it answered a lot of basic questions. So thanks for that, Anna. I'm already seeing some questions in the Q&A and chat sections, so I'm going to start going through those. The first one from Raluca, who's asking if the completion process is applicable to all the 3 types of financing that you mentioned. And then as a follow-up question, what is the legal status of an investor in case of safe and convertible loans?
I will answer the first question. Yes, it doesn't matter the type of the campaign. For each campaign, we incorporate an SPV. The difference will be at the end of the investment documents. For equity, we sign a shareholders agreement with the startup. For safe and convertible loan, we sign a contract with the startup, and then usually the convertible loan has a due date. We follow the company, and when it's the due date, then we have to prepare additional documents in order to convert the shares. And sorry, I forgot the second question. Can you help me, please?
Yeah. Let me repeat that. What's the legal status of an investor in case of safe and convertible loans?
Basically, an investor becomes a shareholder of the SPV, and the SPV has a contract with the startup. So the contract is the legal instrument that's that establish this relation between the SPV and the startup.
Yeah, and that is the same for all financial instruments. There's no difference from safe to equity and convertible. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. That just to clarify, that is the same.
The process, yes.
Structure, yeah.
The process is the same. The structure of the SPV is settled at the beginning, at the incorporation stage, and the percentage owned by each investor is deciding according. It's established according to the invested amount. Usually, there is a maximum amount an investor can invest through SeedBlink for each campaign. We usually limit this amount to 15% of the total amount targeted by the company, in order not to block the decisions of the SPV. And then the SPV signs the documents, each document for each type of campaign with the startup.
Okay, gotcha. I think that's pretty clear. Thank you for that. Let's see, what other questions? All right, I think we have some questions in the chat that I want to cover.
Sorry, I see here also a question regarding in case the VC approaches the SPV with a buyout of their shares, who governs their acceptance, rejection of the offer. All the decision within the SPV is taken by the investors, the shareholders. For each decision is settled a majority. Usually for share capital increase, it's around 2/3 of the shareholders should approve it. So that's with the acceptance or the rejection of an offer. It is taken by majority by the shareholders, and the shareholders are the investors.
Okay, cool. Another question in the chat: Do we have standard articles of association for the SPV we are setting up for each seed round?
Yes, we are using templates. We have 2 templates because it depends on the type of the SPV. If we have below 50 investors, then will be incorporated a limited company. In Romania, it's called SRL. If we have above 50 investors, then would be a joint stock company, an SA in Romania. So it depends on the type of the SPV, but yes, we have a template for both types.
All right, and I think the second part of these questions is about the governance rules within the SPVs. I think it's worth kind of going through those really fast, or is it too in-depth for this session? I think that might be a question that's better off answered.
I think we
afterwards.
should discuss a little about drag and tag along. Usually these are the rights the SPV has, and within the SPV this translates through majority, because the majority approves, for instance, to accept an offer, then the other should accept it too. So it depends on the majority of the SPV and how this majority is set.
All right, and then there's another question, and I think it's a good one. Do we have follow-on rights?
Yes, usually for equity, of course, because for equity we have a shareholders agreement where we have these rights stated, and for convertible and safe, we try to negotiate this right when they will be converted and when the shares will be owned by the SPV. But the SPV, yes, has follow-on rights, meaning that on a following round, the SPV can acquire more shares in order to keep its percentage owned in the startup.
I think that pretty much answers it. Another interesting one that just came in is about the process that we use to select startups. I think it's worth going through that just a bit and explaining the steps and how a startup ends up on SeedBlink.
Sure. We have a team, analyst team, that are permanently scouting for interesting startups, and also we have a section on our platform where startups can submit their application. All the applications are considered. There is a list of acceptance criteria for all the startups. The first step is a call with the analyst. Then they will pass through a committee, and then when they are ready to be listed, they should prepare a list of documents. Also, they have a legal check, and we check several issues regarding the company. Whenever we have a question mark regarding the company, we usually don't allow publishing the campaign. We postpone it, or we can cancel it. So we are looking for startups in IT field that have an MVP, that have a minimum viable product, that have some traction, the way they can scale up, or other checks like this. Hope I answered the question. Analyzing the companies is not precisely my field, so I will put this to the analyst, and I'm sure they will have a lot more to say.
Yeah, I think, and I think we do have some resources on this on the website, but to answer the maturity level question, we are looking for at least an MVP for all our startups. All right, great.
Exactly. I started with the question who can be an investor on SeedBlink, but I want also to make a disclaimer. We do not recommend to invest more than 10% of the investor's net worth, meaning that it's better to have a diversified portfolio, because investments in startups also involve risks, including the risk of losing these investments, illiquidity, or the lack of dividends. So we recommend first-time investors to start with the minimum ticket and to analyze their decision of investing. That we are publishing all the information needed from a company, from financial business plan, pitch, in order to be able to take their own decision, or they can consult, I don't know, an investment consultant in this regard and take their own decisions.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. There's another one in the chat. Could you summarize what is the legal framework for crowdfunding in Romania? And I don't think we can summarize that. Maybe Anna, you can give us your input on that rather, or just a kind of our side of things, because that's kind of a broad question. I don't think we can answer it as a whole.
The legal frame for incorporating an SPV, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think the question is a bit broader. Maybe if you can clarify that question, that would be great. The way I interpret it is, yeah, the legal framework for our side of things, for the SPV.
This might be a question, or the other question is regarding the crowdfunding regulation. At the EU stage was adopted a regulation in this regard, and soon it will be implemented in Romania as well. But our process respects this regulation, and we are trying to be compliant with it. Regarding the legal frame for the SPV, usually we incorporate a Romanian company that has this purpose of making the investment in a company. It's a large framework, but we are compliant, and we are trying our best to be compliant with all the regulation also regarding crowdfunding and Romanian law.
All right, great. Another one, and this might be pretty interesting. What's the usual time frame from the moment when I sign up to when I can actually invest in a startup?
Usually the completion process may take up to 8 weeks from the moment the campaign is ended. Due to the fact that, as you can see, each investor has 4 days for signing the agreement. Then we have the reconciliation period of at least 1 week, and then for the incorporation documents, we have usually a deadline set within 3 days, but usually it takes longer. Also, the investors have 3 days at disposal for wiring the transfer, but it sometimes lasts up to a week. And then at the trade registry, when we submit the file, we usually get a response within 3 to 4 days. But if there are observations from the trade registry, the deadline can be up to 2 weeks. We usually recommend the first-time investors to check the fiscal record for the Romanian investors, because if a Romanian investors has facts written in the fiscal record, then he or she, the investor, won't be able to be registered as shareholder. And then the whole process should be started from the beginning, signing the incorporation documents, making another transfer, so on. So the whole process can last up to 8 weeks.
All right, cool. And just in case, I think that's a great answer, but I think the question was also referring a bit to the process from the sign up to when you can actually invest in a company. And just to give some context on that, that can take as little as 1 day or even less, from to my knowledge. But Anna, if you want to give more details on that.
Sure. For when to sign up on our platform, it's enough to open an account, verify your email, and then to verify your identity. We have a soft that help us verify the identity of the individuals, and then, or it can be manually checked and can take longer, usually up to 48 hours from the moment of the submission of the documents through the email. When the identity is checked, then the investor has access to all the documents of the campaigns, and can make his own decisions regarding the investment. They can check all the documents, check the business plan, decide on what campaign to invest on. We don't have a time limit. Each investor should have his own time to consider a campaign to invest in. And when they decide to invest, then from the moment they press the button commit, this whole completion process will start.
All right, cool, thank you. I think that covers it. And you mentioned time limits, and I see another question related to this. How do we decide when a campaign should be extended?
Usually we have 45 days for each campaign, and with the agreement of the startup and our committee, a campaign can receive extra days, but usually we have those 45 days.
All right, and as a follow-up to that, can investors withdraw in case a campaign is extended?
Yes, in case the campaign is extended, other investors can join us, can invest, and we will consider them for the final confirmed investors list.
All right, I think the question was, can an investor withdraw? So if we decided to, well, actually, let me rephrase this, because I think what the question is trying to ask is, if a campaign doesn't reach its goal in the time limit, right, in the 45 days or 60 days, if that's the case, can investors withdraw afterwards?
Yes, indeed, one of the conditions to have all the process started is the campaign to raise a minimum amount. Usually the minimum amount for a campaign is 100,000 euros. If this amount isn't raised within the 45 days or the extending period, then the campaign will be considered to be failed. I don't know, it sounds not so nice, but if the campaign is considered failed, then all the investors will be notified, and the process of incorporating an SPV won't happen. So the investor that committed on that campaign won't sign the documents, won't transfer the investment, won't have to pay any costs or any money. Just we will notify them that the campaign wasn't successful. Yeah.
All right, that's great. I think that covers it. And what happens after a campaign is closed? How are investors updated on what the startup is doing, on the latest kind of updates from the startup?
No,
Do we
that's
do
a good
anything
one.
to help in that process?
Yes, the investors, the confirmed investors, will receive information from the companies. They receive quarterly reports, and also encourage the founders to meet their investors. Usually we have an online meeting with the founders and the investors to meet each other, to maybe collaborate if the case, if it's of interest. But the quarterly reports are uploaded on the platform, and whenever the founders have updates for the investors, we post those information in the platform, and also we notify the investors through email.
Yeah, all right. And I would say that our sessions of founders and investors are pretty successful. I've seen a big crowd on some of those.
Okay, I see here a question. Does your SPV usually have representatives in the board of the startups, or at least an observatory role without the ability to vote? Usually the SPV is a minority shareholder, holds usually below 10% of the startups, so it won't get a seat board. But we are in contact with all the startups, so we can follow them through those quarterly reports. We have a dedicated person that keeps the contact with the startups in order to be able how they are performing. And whenever is a follow-on round, we know, and we have to give I don't know, either our rights of our preemptive right if we want to participate or not, or our agreement to go further with the round without us. So we keep in contact with all the startups, even though we don't have a board seat.
Okay, awesome. Here's another one. And this is just getting back to the basics for a second. Who sets the valuation of the startups? And is it possible as an investor via SeedBlink to get diluted?
Okay, so basically there are two questions regarding the valuation of the company. Basically, this is a result of a negotiation. If the company receives funds also from a VC, usually the VC negotiates this valuation. Otherwise, the company evaluates itself, and we are giving our feedback, but we are not. We are aware of the valuation, and we are trying to be consistent with the valuation. We are looking at other companies from the same field, targeting the same markets, and seeing how they are evaluated. So we are giving our feedback also to the companies that want to raise funds for SeedBlink regarding their evaluation. Regarding the dilution of the SPV, yes, this is a right of the SPV. In case the startup will have another round raised, and they sell the shares at a lower price than the one that the SPV bought the shares, then the SPV is entitled to receive other shares in order to compensate for the price paid. This is it.
Okay, thank you. And since we're talking about exits or potential exits, can we give any number on how long it usually takes for an exit?
As far as we could see, it takes almost 3 to 5 years, but of course it can be a situation in which the company can sell after a year of the fundraise, or it can take 10 years, but usually 3 to 5 years for an exit, as far as we can say.
All right, yeah, I would say that's a fair estimation. And are the SPVs audited?
Yes, they are checked, but and depends for each situation. If a VC participates also in the round, the VC usually audits the companies with specialized companies. I don't know, financial audit, technical audit, but we are several checks that we are looking for, and we are trying to match these checks before publishing the campaign.
Okay, cool. Here's another one related to startups. So again, might not be the best forum to answer, but let's try. Do we do a technology audit of the solution that belongs to the startup listed on SeedBlink before contributing or for listing it actually on our platform?
As I previously said, we have a list of checks, and we are looking for the company to be legit for the business purpose of this company, and all the information of the company is displayed for each campaign in order for each investor to can analyze and see if they need further information. If the investors need or have questions for the company, we have a section where they can address questions to the founders, and the founders will answer them. But we have in our committee members that have experience in technological field, entrepreneurial field, accountancy. So we are looking at the companies through the eyes of this committee. We are not using specialized companies for auditing these companies.
Yeah, and I would say while we do a lot of checks, and I think by this point we kind of nailed the process of selecting startups, that doesn't mean that investors shouldn't do their part of the checks, and so that's still something important, and still something that should be done by each investor before placing money.
Okay, I don't know if it was a statement or a question from your side, Vlad, sorry.
No, I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, or do you have a different opinion?
Yes, indeed, I agree. One more thing I wanted to mention in regard to the SPV and why we are using this model. We are using this model because we are trying to negotiate with the startup a series of terms and conditions of the investments, and we do not have simple equity campaigns in which the investors finance the startups and receive a series of shares. We negotiate a series of terms and conditions of rights of the investors in order to get protected, I would say, the investor as far as we can do. So we have those rights, as I said, anti-dilution, preemption rights, and a lot of other terms of the investment. And also in this relation with the startup is helped by the fact that in the cap table, they will have only one investors only one investor. We usually have campaigns that start with 10 to 15 investors, and we have campaigns that campaigns with over 100 investors. So 100 investors in the cap table of a startup will produce a lot of changes for the startup, changing its juridical form and having all the decisions. Basically, to take decision, the startup will have to allocate more time, and for this point of view, it's a win-win. The startup wins a single investor in the cap table, and the investors receive a series of rights that we consider to be essential for the investment.
All right, here's another one about the onboarding process. Why do I need to do the identity check before being able to see documents and invest in a startup?
Usually, there are sensitive information that the company accepts to post on the campaign. So we have to know our investors before giving them access to this kind of information. For this reason, we have that identity check.
All right, okay, awesome, thank you. We're kind of closing the end. We still have a few questions left, but I'm just gonna take a break, and Anna, if there's anything that you wanna mention that maybe hasn't been asked before, but would be a question that you think might be worth answering, let's go ahead and do that.
I don't know, there are a lot of questions crossing my mind, but I think the best solution in this point would be to let the participant ask me anything, and if they decide to ask me later, you can find my email or my mobile phone and call me if you need further information regarding the process or what happens before. Basically, what happens from the moment an investor sign up on our platform till the end of the investment. So I'm glad to answer your question here in the live Q&A session, and also offline via email or mobile phone.
All right, that's good to know. I think there's just one question left that we haven't covered at all, and that is there any legal difference or legal impact to an investor if he's investing in a startup that's not from his country?
It depends, because if the startup is from EU, then it would be the same if the startup is registered in Romania. If the startup is registered in US, it might, legally, I don't know to answer, but might the taxation be different if the case, but I don't know to see the difference of taxation between
but there is
countries.
no, I think that the question was kind of focused on, are there any extra things that an investor needs to know? Not, obviously the taxes might be a bit different, but is it like, can you even invest if you're from Romania and you want to invest in a startup from France? Is that something that you're able to do via SeedBlink?
Yes, because we are part of EU, it makes things easier, and it doesn't matter where the startup is incorporated. Usually the investors get access to an incorporation certificate and can find more information regarding the juridical form, the legal form of the startup.
Okay, gotcha. Well, okay. I think those are pretty much all the questions that we had. I see a raised hand. in here. So let's hear if the Ruslan, I think his name is, has anything to ask us.
Okay.
Oh,
I would be glad to hear.
yeah, I think he left the chat,
Oh.
so that was just a ruse.
He got shy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, if anyone has any other questions, we're always available to chat. You can reach us on SeedBlink at any time. And one other thing that I would like to mention before we wrap this up, we would love to hear your feedback on this format. If you think it's useful, we're thinking or planning to do it maybe recurringly each month, each few months. So let us know either here in the chat or via email, any feedback, anything else that you would like to see to kind of get ready or all good to go to be successful on SeedBlink. And on that note, Anna, if you have any other closing notes.
No, Vlad, I want to thank you for moderating this event, and hope to receive feedback and questions, and maybe meet you again sooner. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Vlad, for assisting me.
Thank you for being here. As mentioned, we will be sending the recording in the next few days. So if anyone missed something, you join late or anything like that, you'll be able to see all the questions that have been answered. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Have a nice day.